Ignaz, Olivia, Kiratu. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Can we hear me?
Yeah, Busala, good morning. This is Claudia.
Good morning. Okay.
Good morning.
Okay, just a few minutes, let's take in more people, and then we would start. We have just 18 participants here, and we're expecting about 60. So we'll just wait a few minutes. Is that okay, everyone? I'm sure it is. Good morning, people. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. We are just waiting to take in few more people before we commence. Everything is fine. I know people are wondering what's happening here. Everywhere is quiet. We're just waiting to take in more people. We have just few of the participants in here. Let's just wait till about 11:15 and then we would start. But let's just, give room for more people to come in. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everybody. You're welcome to day 2 of the virtual summit of the Strictly Law Business. So the Strictly Law Business Virtual Summit, advancing the practice and business of law in complex times. Trust we are doing well in this season. My name is Omo. I am the Master of Ceremonies. As much as it seems like I cannot use that word in this regard, or that title in this regard, because really and truly we are not actually live together. However, I'm sure I'm permitted to use it as in the context of being the moderator, the anchorman and the continuity officer, if there's such a word like that in virtual space. We had a good time yesterday together. Whilst we were speaking, whilst we were listening to the erudite scholars. I know his name is just Mr. Shola Adepetu, but I prefer to call him Dr. Adepetu of Ignaz, as one of the foremost law firms in Nigeria. Doctor, because of course we are in Africa. Such erudite scholar, such a brilliant man. We cannot refer to him by ordinary names. We must give him a title, like Chief or Your Excellency or something like that. Excuse me. Mr. Shola Adepetu. We had a great time with him yesterday in the morning session. And we had Professor Yinka Omorogbe, that is the Honorable Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice of Edo State, and Mrs. Fola Konde. The three of them giving us practical insight into what to be doing at this time, how we should reposition ourselves to be profitable. And I was particularly delighted by the afternoon session where we had very, very, very insightful and practical talk from Sharon is the partner of Pavestones, a partner at Pavestones Legal. She basically helped us to see how we can pivot our way through the different phases of our legal career, and it was also a very splendid time. Whilst we wait till 11:15 for the room to be fuller, I can see that one of our speakers, I think two of them are already present. Please, if you were here yesterday, and particularly in the afternoon segment, and you would like to share your thoughts and the things you learned, can you kindly wave or raise your hand? And I'll ask that Busola should give you the floor so that we can have you share your thoughts with us. If you were with us yesterday afternoon, when we had the distinguished managing partner of Pavestone Legal speak to us, please can you wave or signify so that we can take you just by way of testimonial or feedback. If Busola?
Yes.
Okay, I wanted to be sure that I wasn't speaking to myself. So if anybody would wave or just drop a comment in the chat room, we will quickly grant you audience. Okay, if there's nobody on ground, I think I'll just go ahead and share my own learnings with us from. I remember she did mention, I mean, it was looking for, I have 3 pages from our session in the afternoon segment. Unfortunately, I think I have mixed up my notes. Okay, I think I'm there. 1 second. Ladies and gentlemen, please a round of applause for, oh, sorry, excuse me. Did I just say a round of applause? I'm too used to these things. I'm also trying to be more proficient as a virtual MC. But can we give it up for Sola Ajala, the convener of this virtual summit, and of course, the founder of the Strictly Law Business, for doing such a great job at having this kind of very, very practical and hands-on summit at this time when there's virtually despair and hopelessness in the town. But we can take time to come and learn a few things. Thank you, Busola, for doing this. Whilst we're in the absence of anyone, Busola, have you seen anybody raising their hand in the chat room?
Nobody's raising their hands. Nobody. Didn't we all learn something yesterday?
Oh, I know, Mr. Marx, you were here with us yesterday. I know Happiness was here with us. Remy Coca was here with us.
Yes.
Yes, and Remy, you said you got your answer, your question answered. So if you like to share 1 or 2 things, Remy.
Yes, I think we should have Remy share with us.
Okay.
Remy, you're unmuted. So
I'm a bit distracted here. I'm actually at the market, came to drop my mom, so I can't really concentrate. I'm multitasking, so I won't be able to speak well. I'm multitasking right now.
Okay.
Remy,
I'm so sorry.
No, not a problem. You just gave me an idea. Please, can
let's have
everybody, can we have everybody tell us where they are tuning in from or listening in from? I know Mr. Marx is in Abuja. Can you just either drop in the comment? Oh, I see Olubumi Ogbonna wants to say something. And Mr. Marx says his hands are raised, but Busola, please, can you grant Mr. Marx audience? He says his hands are raised, and then Olubumi Ogbon, I can't see the full surname, but Oluwabumi also has her hands raised. Mr. Marx, can we have you first? Then we have Bumi later.
Okay, Omo, thank you so much, Omo. I hope everyone can hear me.
You can be more audible.
Okay, is it better now?
Oh, yes, it is.
Okay, yeah. So thanks so much. Yeah, so for me, what I really enjoyed about yesterday was there was a lot of knowledge on the table. I mean, the facilitator shared a lot of knowledge with us. But one of the things that struck me and which for me really impacted me the most was the fact that she shared her vulnerabilities. So sometimes it's good to hear from the people who have really gone far with their practice, which is fine. For instance, what we had in the morning with Mr. Adikbetun and all. But sometimes when you have somebody who is closer to you, who is not too far from you, who is still facing some of the challenges you are facing, and you can hear a person, someone who has conquered more recently what you are going through. There's a level of encouragement it brings that goes beyond just empowering you with knowledge. So for me, I love that mix. In the morning, we had a really experienced people And then we had, someone share with us from a very vulnerable standpoint, from a standpoint a lot closer to what some of us feel, somebody who has gone through the process. A lot of us are going through within the same relevant context. So for me, it was really good. I really enjoyed, both the morning and then the afternoon session yesterday. So that for me was a huge takeaway.
Thank you so much, Mr. Max. Thank you. That's really, really insightful. I believe that the people that we learn from the most.
Sorry, Omo, your mic is low.
Oh, I apologize. Is it better now?
It is.
Okay, I believe that sometimes the people we learn from the most are our peers, which is why I am an advocate of this peer mentoring strategy, because sometimes by the time you share notes and share scripts of what is going on with you or at your end, you find out that the encouragement that people get and the ability to apply the learnings are more. Thank you so much, Mr. Max, for that. Can we quickly take Oluwabumi Busola, and then I can see that our speakers are ready. Olivia Kiratu from Kenya. Excuse me if I didn't pronounce that well. And then Fuesgen Ignaz from Germany are online already. Thank you for joining us and for the promptness. We will take you in a few minutes. We just want to take one more feedback from yesterday, and then we will go ahead. Thank you.
Oh, please reduce that volume. It's very
Hello.
loud, like it's shadowing me
Hello,
here.
Becky DK. Do you want to share an experience or okay? Please, once again, crave the indulgence of all by way of announcement that we please put our mute our microphones. And then if you're not properly dressed, you don't want, for instance, Remy that is in the market, I'm sure she doesn't want us to see the things that are happening in the market. If you're not properly dressed or you're not in an appropriate place, if you kindly also mute or turn off your camera so that we can have full concentration and attention. We noticed yesterday morning some people came in um, and it was quite distracting for some of our speakers. Somebody is with us from Delta State in Sapele. Thank you so much for joining. In the absence of any other, somebody says my hands are raised. Adejoke Adeshino. Busola, can we grant Adejoke Adeshino audience?
I'm trying to see her. She can unmute. I can't see her.
Okay, I have unmuted. Can it be audio only?
Okay, we can see her. It can be audio only. Thank you. That's fine.
Okay, but this is me here very briefly. All right.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, of course we are home, so don't mind all that homey appearance.
Not a problem.
So yesterday's session was a very insightful one, a thoroughly enjoyable one for me. What I actually took away from it majorly is the fact that I was able to measure where I am as a solo practitioner, because I had already started my own solo practice about 3-4 years ago, but it enabled me to see that beyond, see beyond my own immediate environment, to be able to see a bigger picture, that yes, as opposed to thinking that it can only be a solo practice just because it's me, I can actually, take advantage of a partnership and reach out to somebody else who has, skills that I don't have, for instance, and then harness that, we can synergize that and make the practice into something much more bigger. I also appreciated the fact that she was, she was totally open. She shared a lot of insights, I mean, it was a thoroughly eye-opening experience. I'm sure for each and every one of us, our takeaways will be different. Whatever it is that we took away from depending on our experiences, our level of preparedness to take our careers to the next level. Another thing is, I like the fact that she shared with us how she was able to transition from the starting of her career to where she is right now. So taking us through that journey is quite encouraging for anybody who is ready to take the plunge. So it lets you see that you don't have to be
on that tutelage like forever or for a long time. All you need is to have that confidence, to be hardworking, to be willing to learn, to be able to leverage your connections in your, amongst your professional colleagues, and things will work out for you as long as you have that focus, the drive, and the determination. So yes, it was indeed well worth it, the time spent on there. Thank you very much for making it possible.
Thank you so much, Joke, Adi Joke, for that insight. Thank you. Brilliant contribution from Joke. And I think, as she has said, the most important thing was the openness that we got. And I'm sure today we are going to have the same from both of our speakers, giving us international perspective, particularly because the jurisdictions are different. And I believe Germany is more advanced than Nigeria. I'm not sure Kenya is more advanced than us in terms of this thing. Olivia will come and correct me if I'm wrong. But again, the international perspective, or our perspective of what is happening outside the country, can give us something to learn from. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great delight that I would like to hand over the microphone to. There's no microphone. Hand over the floor or bring to the podium of all the things we are used to when we are emceeing normal events. Olivia, thank you for joining. Busola, to give us the opening remark, and then, of course, to educate us on how and what the aims and objectives of this morning session. Thank you, Busola.
Thank you so much, Omo. Thank you for such a fantastic job yesterday, and which you have continued today. I'm so delighted to have done this with you. Thank you as always. And like I always say, you are our favorite MC. Thank you. And good morning, everyone. Again, thank you for joining us, and thank you for sharing your feedback about yesterday's sessions. I'm glad that we got value. I'm glad that we were able to soak in as much as possible. And believe you me, that was the plan. That was the plan we had for the virtual summit. We wanted it to be an immersion. We wanted people to go away with relatable experiences. We didn't want people to share, theoretical things with us. We wanted people that would be so practical, vulnerable, and open. And I'm glad that we were able to get that. Thank you so much for sharing. And for those who have sent emails, sent messages, saying thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate the feedback. And thank you to those who have followed us. Please, if you have not followed us yet, please follow us, like us, appreciate us, show us love. We like to receive plenty of love. Show us love, and we'll be happy to do more. So today's session, like I said, like in the email we sent out to you guys, is going to be a sort of international digital party. Woo! Who is excited about that? And interestingly, we do not have just, so we have other people in the house. It's an international summit today. We have our friends from the international community. We have people that will be joining in from Spain. We have people already here from Germany. We have 2 people from Germany. Actually, Astrid is here. Astrid is going to be taking us in the afternoon, but she's here in the morning. Astrid, hi. And we also have the other people that would also be joining again. The reason why we are doing this is for us to understand that legal practice is not just, it's beyond what we are doing here in Nigeria, right? It's not just what we are doing within our local space. We need to have a global view of what is happening in the international space. We need to be conversant with happenings around the world. And that's what is going to make us a distinguished lawyer. That's what will separate us from the pack, right? And again, because we are not in the digital age, we're in the digital space. I mean, somebody reached out to me yesterday from South Africa saying she wants to make a payment for today's session. And I was like, wow, that's really good. That's fantastic. I've had a whole lot of international community come into my space within just these few days of putting up the summit. So that's to show you that we can no longer begin to practice law or think within the concept of our local environments. We have to have a global view. We have to move beyond, the Nigerian climate, to know what is happening around the world. And that's why I thought it important that we should have people from the international space to come and share with us, particularly in terms of client-attorney relationship that has had a that has had a wider view and a better experience, within the international space. We are yet to adopt that here in Nigeria. We are only just starting, and that's one of the things SLB is set to do. That's one of the things SLB wants to do, right? So for them to share with us what's happening in their own space, let us know, the tips, the strategies, the things they've actually been leveraging to get things done. And again, it's also an opportunity to network with the international community, so that we're not just in Nigeria doing local champion, but we know what is happening in the international space and we can connect with it. And because right now, a lot of people, I read an article from a summit that, and I think it was convened by the WHO. I really cannot remember. And in that article, what it was saying is that the African space now is going to be a better place for capital to be deposited, because over there, so we all know that in Europe, in America, the coronavirus is eating them badly. People can no longer do business. A lot of countries, a lot of companies are moving their factory away from China because it's no longer safe to be in China. People are moving their, Japan has moved a whole lot of, the government of Japan is trying to make room for the Japanese companies to come back home and to begin to produce from Japan. So people are moving, from the Western world and trying to see, the African client, to see where they can invest, to see where they can do business. So we're going to have a whole lot of opportunities. The African community is going to open up so much, but are we prepared for these opportunities? Would we be able to take advantage of it? Thankfully, we're in the digital space. Everyone will be working from home for like 5 weeks now. But there's an opportunity for you to consult for somebody without seeing the person. There's an opportunity for you to consult for somebody within the international space. You necessarily do not have to move, anywhere. Just from the comfort of your home, you can consult. But you need to be equipped with tools and strategies to do this. You need to know how to go about this. You need to even be within their space, within their faces. You need to be within that digital space for them to be able to see you and be able to do business with you, right? And again, people are getting jobs now. I have people in the SLB community that two ladies. Someone was sharing their experience with me. I said, okay, so how did your onboarding process go? She said it was via Zoom. Our onboarding process was via Zoom. They've been communicating via Zoom. So people are losing jobs, but people are also getting jobs. Somebody sent me also somebody to corroborate what Mr. Adebayo said yesterday about thinking in terms of drafting rules for the other people now. Somebody sent me a message yesterday that what Mr. Adebayo said is actually what she's experiencing at the moment. That she has a client who contacted her saying that he wants to draft a will because people don't know. I was speaking to my boss yesterday and he told me that Busola is scared because he's an older man. In fact, he had to drive himself out yesterday because he had an official appointment. But he had to drive himself out because he said, I'm scared. I don't know where my driver lives and I do not want to come in contact with him yet because I am older and my vulnerability to the coronavirus is high. So I do not want to endanger my life. So people are going to be thinking of, should I die? What's going to happen? What's my estate going to look like? What are the things that would happen? What are the things I need to put in place? So in all of this, we need to be rightly positioned so that we can take advantage of the opportunities that are coming, of the opportunities that are even around. We need to be rightly positioned. We need to have the right tips, strategies, tools, and everything, and even the right network, because there are some things you may not be able to do, but you can connect with another person and you'll be able to, execute together and share profits, right? So it's no longer a regime of just me, myself, and I want to eat alone and die alone. No, but you can collaborate with people, right? And for a lot of opportunities. So that's why I felt that it's good to have people from the international space to speak to us. Ignaz apparently also happens to be a faculty member of the SLB community. So this is like homecoming for Ignaz. This is like homecoming for Ignaz. I'm sure we have some of the alumni, we have some of our alumni of the SLB Academy who are here, and I'm sure that they would be able to relate very well with Ignaz today. And my sister from Kenya, like I like to call her, Olivia Kiratu, is from Kenya. She's a lawyer and she's also a business development trainer for lawyers. So as a lawyer, Olivia has, knowledge of the pain points of we lawyers. She can relate, and so she's going to be sharing from my experiences and also from my expertise. How did I meet these two? I met them online. So one morning I was on my way to work in 2019, and I saw somebody send, and I saw a message on my WhatsApp from a foreign number, and after I recognized it was a South African number because I also belong to this South African lawyers group on WhatsApp. And the person said, "Oh, I saw your flyer about the business of law conference, blah blah blah. Is there where we can have a conversation? I'd like to talk to you about what you're doing." And it turned out to be Ignaz. And that's how, we are here today. And we've interacted. He came to Nigeria to teach us at the business of the SLB Academy. He was here for 2 days. Ignaz is a fantastic person. Ignaz is a Nigerian. He has the Nigerian sense. He's street smart. And Ignaz is a wonderful person. When he was in Nigeria, I was worried. I was looking for a South African restaurant before he arrived at the house. I don't know. But Ignaz came and ate semo and egusi. Ignaz ate Nigerian jollof rice. And so that's to show you the level of reception and the level of accommodation, and with Ignaz. He's a very, very fantastic person, and we've enjoyed a very, very wonderful relationship. And Ignaz is actually big on trust. And I think I should say this. At the time Ignaz came to Nigeria, he came all expenses paid himself. We had an agreement on, his fees and all. But he came without collecting the fees, and he left Nigeria also without collecting the fees. I had to wire the fees back to him. And it took a while because of the bank, transaction and everything. It took a while. But Ignaz did not for one day doubt he didn't doubt me. He did not for one day doubt my integrity to make that deposit. So Ignaz, I want to appreciate you for that. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And this is to tell us again, like one of the things I say to the members of SLB community, that in whatever you do, integrity should be your watchword. Do not lose your integrity. If I had lost that integrity, I'm not sure Ignaz will be here today. In fact, I would have been, the news would have been either on LinkedIn or wherever, I don't know. But thank you, Ignaz. Thank you. I appreciate that level of trust in me. So Olivia, I also met Olivia on LinkedIn by sharing my story, talking on LinkedIn, discussing, having conversations. And we got on a WhatsApp call and we said, okay, what can we do together? How can we collaborate? And here we are today, we're collaborating. And Olivia is an expert and she's going to be sharing with us from a wealth of knowledge. So to start with, we'll take Ignaz, and everyone join me in welcoming Ignaz, and I hand over to you, Ignaz. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Busola. Yeah, that's a lot of praise, I guess, actually. Thank you. You're just actually making me blush. And no, it's great being back. And I already also spotted a couple of other actually sort of familiar names like Cynthia and others. So it's great actually at least meeting you guys during these very strange and unusual times that we're going through. For those I haven't met yet, just a very brief introduction, apart from the fact that I happen to travel to places that are not the usual ones, at least not actually for those actually who happen to be based in Joburg, which was true until mid of December last year. I'm not a lawyer by training. I did a business degree, and as a management consulting, eventually stumbled in the legal profession and spent a couple of years there. As a matter of fact, I believe 14, and also worked for some of the larger law firms, including perhaps some of you may recognize the name Weber Wenzel in Joburg, where I was a member of the executive committee. And after sort of finishing up with my when my tenure at Weber Wenzel came to a close, I set up a boutique consultancy, just actually advising any players in the legal profession in-house legal departments, as well as law firms, alternative legal service providers, and legal tech firms. And now since December, together with my family, we relocated to Germany, but nonetheless, actually, part of me has been actually left behind in Africa, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity program chair, Busola, well done, actually putting this together. And I would like to share a couple of ideas, insights around what may be actually relevant to your day-to-day life, your routines, and the way we see the world change today. And I do this from a perspective of someone who traveled a little bit actually these days. It's not just Germany, but it's as well as actually what I've seen before Corona actually and the COVID-19 started in countries such as Zambia. I worked a little bit with the African Bar Association, and obviously South Africa. I can talk about that actually also at length if need be. And so I think today's topic, my understanding is about looking at the situation, the client-attorney relationship, and during these days or these times, and how we can actually positively actually identify potential additional collaboration opportunities, because it's not all doom and gloom over here. Obviously, there's when we go through what we have at the moment, we see a lot of things that are unusual, that are definitely, undoubtedly, actually challenging to what we do, what we're used to. But obviously, there will be actually a time at the moment to find new ways of interacting with the clients we have, as well as actually times when we actually go back from a new normal to the old normal, or the new normal, depending on how you look at it. So that will be actually the idea, to just actually look at those. Before I delve actually into a couple of ideas, just could you actually in the chat indicate who of you is actually an in-house counsel and who's actually a private practitioner? Because my sense is we got a lot of private practitioners today, but I'm not 100% sure, obviously. So maybe we should, any in-house legal counsel actually joining us today? Either they're shy or there's none. So I noted from what I see in the chat. Before we go into a couple of ideas, let me just look at, perfect. I got one here. So I'm sure there are a few more, but as I said, they're potentially, we got two, perfect. So great. So what I'm going to discuss will actually touch the client-attorney relationship from both ends, because it's, you may have seen the popular hashtag these days, we're in this together. And even without COVID-19, this was always actually a true statement for the client-attorney relationship. It was never a confrontational relationship, but at times we did not treat each other as well as we should have. And COVID-19 is now giving us an opportunity to recalibrate what we've done in the past, and also actually giving us the opportunity for a fresh start. Before going there, I hope I do actually have the opportunity to share my screen. I would like to take you just through one example, and this is actually a very brief overview on what the scenarios may look like for the next 3 to 5 years. Deloitte has most recently published a study called The World Remade by COVID-19, Planning Scenarios for Resilient Leaders. And let me quickly see because it seems like the bar is covering part of it. So we get basically four scenarios. The one is actually called Passing the Storm. The next one, actually, Good Company, Sunrise in the East, and Lone Wolves. Now, Passing the Storm actually assumes it's going to be short. It's going to be over shortly. So we will sort of actually come back from lockdown and things will quickly actually scale up again back to normal. The implications are quite obvious. I mean, in particular, our SME businesses will suffer from that because at the moment they're running out of liquidity, they're struggling. So, but SME businesses are not actually anonymous, faceless entities. Those are people we know. Those are the clients. And for those who are in-house counsel, those are your companies struggling with actually generating enough cash to pay all the wages, struggling to actually adhering to all the new hygiene requirements and so forth. And for you attorneys, these are your clients, the ones who have instructed you on drafting a supply contract. Those are the ones now struggling on really trying to actually make a living from nothing, literally, with all the lockdown, the closures of factories, disrupted supply chains and so forth. And it will also hit the lower and middle income individuals, another actually client segment. For those who actually have quite an extensive base in a private client business, those are your clients who were able to afford your fees, but not necessarily deemed to actually ask for pro bono advice. Now they're also taking a hit at the moment. So if you move forward, then these other scenarios actually assume it will take much longer. So we will see actually good companies, Sunrise in the east and Lone Wolves. I mean, looking at the most extreme scenario over here, it's about the Lone Wolves, which means it will become actually a severe pandemic that will not actually go away in a short period of time. We will see massive disruptions, and countries will actually refrain from aligning themselves internationally or nationally and will just fall back into nationalist, protectionist structures. What does that mean for us actually? It means we will actually see a world that will be much more look like, or will much more sort of actually introspective in a way. Will actually just do a lot of navel gazing. International cross-border initiatives will basically come to a halt, if not actually be severely slowed down. For us, as from an attorney perspective, that means basically that there's not a lot of actually international business anymore, but we will actually see patterns very similar to those we've seen around, say, in Africa, before the African Union actually stepped up to the plate, pre-COMESA, we will see a lot of actually disintegration happening because of that. Apart from that, we also, and just let me say this from a South African perspective, there may be a danger of actually authoritarian rule actually returning to Africa, much more than what we've actually experienced most recently. Civil rights will be endangered. Obviously, data needs to be shared more aggressively than ever before. Constitutionally entrenched rights may be at risk of actually being violated. Judiciary may be undermined because of the ongoing crisis for a long time, which will actually offer a good excuse for those actually who have appetite for power to rise to on the occasion and take charge at the helmet. And we all know what that means in our African jurisdictions. And, you know, we need to be very careful that this scenario is not also actually endangering our democracy overall, and also independence of the legal profession. And in between, you have a couple of other scenarios. I mean, one is actually called good company, where we certainly have a scenario that may just actually be somewhat in the middle, and we will see a lot of larger companies actually moving into space because they will be the ones actually surviving the mass killings of smaller businesses and will take advantage of it. But we will also actually obviously be exposed to much more capitalist trends and patterns, which means sometimes what we've achieved thus far in terms of corporate citizenship may just actually be scaled back in favor of a more sort of open capitalism. And from an African perspective, we also understand what that would actually mean. So a regulation may be scaled back just on the basis of arguments that these regulations are just contradictory to economic growth, and larger companies will definitely flex their muscles to get rid of some of the, for instance, immediately of environmental regimes and so forth. And then the fourth one is really around sunrise in the East, because the East apparently seem to be much better prepared at the moment, at least, to cope with the crisis, and they may just take that as may consider that an advantage and move into the space. What does that mean actually for us from an in-house and attorney perspective? Now, I mean, I mean, China is obviously the largest next to the US, and then actually followed by quite a distance, actually, the European Union, one of the largest foreign direct investors in Africa. The question is, what does that actually mean in terms of actually your client landscape in a country like Nigeria with its natural resources? I mean, for a lot of you, it would probably see your context being moved, or your decision-making process being moved out of Nigeria into Asia. And the question is, how do you cope with that if you try to keep in touch with clients? And from an in-house perspective, the question is, how would that actually change the way you need to actually look at certain things that you may have most recently implemented in terms of compliance processes and so forth? Because obviously China does have a different, does take a different stance on certain aspects that are widely regarded as being Western in terms of anti-corruption activities, compliance, and so forth. And with China playing a much stronger role, as say the Asian countries, that may shift into a slightly different direction. The question is, will that actually also impact your portfolio and the way you look at certain things internally from an in-house legal department's perspective? So this is just a quick of a roller coaster ride through some of the scenarios we see. And the things that we need to actually look at here are really should really actually make us think about the way a way we actually interact with clients. And so if we ignore this future scenario for now and just actually look at today and assume that the future scenario may not be quite clear at this stage. So how do we at least prepare potentially in a way that may not contradictory to any of those four scenarios, but in the short and long run will at least help you actually surviving today, but also actually will give you the flexibility to engage tomorrow. And if you look at your client relationships at the moment, the first and foremost aspect that we can actually identify as an asset from our current situation, or something positive that comes out of it, is clearly is the personal aspect of it. So there's no us and them. There's not in-house versus actually attorneys and vice versa. We're all actually affected. The virus does not actually differentiate between any of us. So therefore, this is actually by far the biggest opportunity to come together as communities, but also as individuals, and understand how we actually can jointly work on it. And notwithstanding the commercial interests of either side, I mean, this is where we connect as people, and it's actually taking us back to the start of what we once actually looked at when we started our law school degrees. It's taking us back to the point where we actually see ourselves actually being two different sides of the same matter. Because law is about it's about the rule of law, but it's about also actually creating a platform to actually achieve and enforce the rule of law. And it needs actually obviously all of us in order to contribute to it. So therefore, as human beings, we now do have an opportunity to reflect on whether our relationship has not just been too technical, not just based on technical aspect, and also find ways actually to come together as humans again. And that actually has two very obvious implications. First of all, it's not immediately about money, because at the moment there may also not enough actually budgets around either way to actually immediately have that actually fight over who actually deserves what, but it's about actually working in the current situation. And that requires an open empathy driven as well as actually constructive way of looking at it from both ends. And it will actually allow us actually to find a platform to interact as clients or as suppliers, again, on that very human level. So this is the first opportunity for collaboration that I actually envisage is going to help us, and that will also last, irrespective of which future scenario is going to actually materialize. It will help us actually to find a way back into this people's business, away from all the nitty-gritty technicalities that we've been entrenched in terms of frame contracts, panels, rigorous application of certain rules. It's about actually working together on something and making it work at the moment, where we see a high degree of volatility, a high degree of uncertainty, and we need to come together. That's the first aspect. And we need to actually also step up in terms of our communication, because we're not able anymore to just pop in for a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, just quickly having a chat here and there. We need to actually try a bit harder in order to communicate better. And that's certainly also an exercise that is not necessarily actually the worst exercise we can go through, because over time we have become complacent. And I'm not saying it's been on the in-house side or the attorney side, but you know, engaging was probably too easy, and we need to try harder. And trying harder will teach us and will teach us how to appreciate more the communication channels that we have, and also the value of time that we dedicate to each other in terms of actually opening up those communication channels. And that will be a second actually insight. So communication is not necessarily something that we can take for granted. We need to work for it, and we need to plan it. We need to look at ways to make it work, even during lockdowns, curfews, and so forth. The next aspect is, for a long, long time, and that's more actually now pointing fingers to the attorney profession, we found ourselves in a very convenient position, in particular in sort of sub-Saharan Africa, where clients were almost a little bit forced actually to go to the attorneys and not vice versa, because mostly quite a number of actually in-house department relied heavily on external counsel support, and external counsel could simply pick and choose. But that time is actually now gone. Again, we're sitting in the same boat, so we need to actually operate on eye level both ways, without actually pulling each other over the table and exploiting the situation unfairly. And in the past, there was not a real need actually to change the established ways of actually advisory. So a lot of law firms in particular were not necessarily proactively driving the digital transformation space. Now that has changed, obviously, since we can't meet each other anymore. We can't sit down. We can't actually quickly leverage the opportunity of the minute by just hopping over. We need to find ways to continue working constructively with each other without actually the benefit of a personal interaction. And we need to think harder about it, because now these days we find ourselves in a space that is not necessarily predetermined by the environment, meaning it's volatile, it's unexpected, uncertain. So digital transformation will help us actually not only to add a new option to the way we interact with each other, but it will give us also new ways of actually exploring joint ideas. Now, in the past, if at all, we met each other for workshops. Then we pulled out a flip chart, and we would be actually around just actually work a little bit with the sticky notes and other things, and but that was as far as it went. I mean, the effort actually put into this was not actually significant. Now these days, that doesn't work anymore. So therefore, we need to now look at actually tools and technologies to organize that. But on the other hand, we also learn about the benefits of those. So now we have electronic whiteboards. We can actually share the same screen. We can look at ideas. We can sketch jointly on something, and we can even record it. And it will last, because it's a digital piece of information. We can store it. We can evaluate that. We can actually revisit that at a later stage. So it's an additional channel that's actually been now forced upon us, which also actually brings opportunities. Then if we go one level further, it's also about processes these days. So in particular, I mean, we're all actually in a state of chaos when the first news came through, when we all actually were locked down in our offices, homes, and so forth. And there was actually a huge flood of work coming through in areas we were not actually it was clearly outside our comfort zone. And the question was really how to prioritize it, how to understand, how to actually dissect the information that was coming through in terms of what had to be done, how to approach it, finding solutions, and so forth. Now, from a process level, I mean, we were ultimately forced actually to apply principles of project management, if we wanted or not, but none of us actually had the capacity to deal with all the issues, unknown, unexpected, unstructured, in the way we did it previously, when we just said, okay, first in, first out. It just actually came through, we organized it, but there was no real pressure. It was, to a certain degree, quite an organized flow of work. Now, this is not happening anymore. And through the back door, we basically learned about ways to actually accommodate volatility. So process-wise, on the attorney side as well as the in-house side, we've now actually acquired a skill, mostly consciously or unconsciously, depending on how you look at it, to deal with this environment and actually learn new techniques to manage unpredictable flows of work. Now, will that benefit us in all these future force scenarios in any event? Yes, it will. Most certainly, because it will help us actually to apply a more conscious and more deliberate approach to the way we work. And that will help us actually also to become better legal advisors, in-house or as private practitioners, because we're moving away from this sporadic, unmanaged, and to a certain degree, on the surface, convenient, but underneath a quite inefficient way of actually handling things. And the final aspect I would like to look at is in general the content side of things. And who would have thought that any of us would ever actually deal with a virus, actually pandemic? Now, what we learned in school and in life was always actually, if there's a risk, you prepare for the risk, you set up a process, and the process will actually look at mitigating risks. Now, the virus outbreak has actually taught us one simple lesson. We simply don't know all the risks. So what we would take away from it, from a private practitioners as well in-house perspective, is you can't prepare for it, but you need to make sure when it hits you right in the face, you will be able to get up again and not actually lie there forever and be finished. And that's one of the things that we need to look at in terms of culture, in terms of the way we actually foster a mindset of agility and resilience. Because these things will probably happen more often. Our world is quite interconnected. It's quite a multilateralism has actually cut its tooth actually in our environment, and it's this time it may be a virus, next time it may be a computer virus, and next time it may be again something more around actually a nuclear fallout or whatever. We don't know. Can we prepare for all it? No, but we can actually shape the mindset to actually see the opportunity first of all to cope with it, to get up again. So we are actually not being knocked down and knocked out by an incident like that, firstly, and secondly, also work with the new normal or the new normal that we're going to experience afterwards. And that mindset is far from the traditional, here's a problem, I'll actually identify it, I'll prepare for it, I'll handle it, and I cope with it, towards actually a very different world. And initially it may scare us, but once we take a closer look, wherever we have that, when we have the right mindset, when we demonstrate actually a way of conceiving that beyond what it is, an immediate threat to our families from a health perspective, we also see there may be certain developments happening that may be beneficial and may even actually be supportive of what we are trying to achieve individually, as firms, as companies, and so forth. And lawyers will not be spared from this change in paradigm and change in mindset. So therefore, that's the final thing that we need to look at. Don't forget, these are the opportunities. So if we consider the virus something that we need to be afraid of, it's better probably to shoot ourselves immediately. But if you take a second glance at it and really embrace the situation for what it is, you will actually spot the opportunities on the various levels I've just outlined. And it may actually make you not only a better lawyer, but also a better person. And you may actually wake up tomorrow in an environment that will be different, but it will not be worse anyway compared to the environment we've known before. So just as a quick tour, and I think I'm really looking forward to take this further. And I've also spotted Astrid, actually, who's going to give a session actually this afternoon, and she will also talk about a lot of change, most likely around legal design and how to actually use that in a way to actually create a better world. Fuesgen, over to you.
Oh, thank you so much, Ignaz.
Hi.
For the insights that you shared so far. I'm sure everybody has gleaned some very important concepts from what you've said. I should have announced that we'll be taking questions. So before you started, but I think I forgot to do that. So please, if anyone has questions for Ignaz, please kindly drop in the in the chat room, so that we can take those questions and then we'll ask him. But I have one question here as I listen to you. You said something about how the external counsel role is gone. That's quite scary because many, well, let me not say many, let me speak for myself. I'm an external counsel, and many practices in Nigeria are tailored in a way that we are either a sole proprietor or we are a bespoke partnership, you know. And so we would usually go to the corporate to ask them for briefs. And yes, many of us probably don't have the technological know-how to compete with the top firms or so, but even the top firms, from what you said, is almost a categorical statement that even the top firms are now gone. So please, could you explain in detail why that's why that is if it is a conclusive statement, and what external counsels can begin to look at if you now want to remain a competitive firm or legal practice? Thank you.
Okay, the business at the moment is gone because nobody is really actually does have any budgets to instruct external counsel, really. I mean, you do only what you have to do, but you would not actually go beyond that. So at the moment, on the advisory side, all the law firms suffering as much as the corporates, obviously, in terms of incoming new work and the work pipeline. At the moment, I've just seen a letter actually of a solo practice. Oh no, it's not a solo practitioner. They're a small practice in South Africa. He wrote an open letter to the Minister of Justice saying he fears that 15% of all law firms may disappear within the next 2 months, and he's asking actually for ways from government to actually provide some sort of financial and infrastructure support in order to avoid that. And because law firms at the moment are suffering economically as well as any other corporate. And you know, if you don't have deep pockets like the larger law firms, it's much more difficult actually to survive 2 or 3 months with no income at all. We all know that. I mean, we've been in the SME space, and and that's one thing. What you actually alluded to is also how how to make sure if your counterparts, for instance, the SME businesses disappear on the corporate side, what to do if any larger corporates are left and you may not get an in with those because you've never been in touch with them. That's an interesting question. I believe that may, I mean, this is a prediction and that's a very personal view of the world. So I stand to be actually challenged on that one. I believe we will actually see then more, most likely a reduction of total attorneys in the market. So at the moment, we have a number of jurisdictions in Africa where we actually see very high numbers of attorneys being churned out from universities, and they tend to struggle actually to make a living because there's simply too many, and in certain areas, too many in one segment. For instance, if you actually just look at South Africa, we clearly have too many attorneys operating in the conveyancing and in the employment space. And we will still have actually quite a number of them, actually too many, also operating in the medical malpractice space, with now government institutions in South Africa, for instance, the Road Accident Fund and others being completely insolvent. So there's no way actually to see that work actually coming through in the near future. Is that actually virus related, or is that actually a phenomena we've seen before? I believe it also started, it started a while ago before, that there's a shift in the market in terms of towards those actually who embrace new ways of doing it versus those who just do it the old way. And without actually singling out anybody, but I've met a couple of colleagues during last year's sessions. They really thought about it. And there was one colleague in particular, she said, okay, I can't make a living from standard commercial work. But if I become a specialist for the fashion industry, I can, because I got a standout criteria, I got a differentiator, and I add more value. And the size of my firm is not relevant in this case. It's the expertise that I have. And there was another colleague who was a specialist in social media and marketing law. So I think this is not going to be the end of all days for all of you. But yes, the economic pressure will increase, irrespective of which scenario we're looking at. And you need to look at what you're doing today, whether that's actually a service that can be offered by many, or the service is more particular to a few segments. And then in this case, size may not be the decisive criteria anymore.
If I hear you, hello, are you there? So if I hear you correctly, we have to look at ways to specialize in things that are rare, where there is no saturation of attorneys and counsel generally, right?
Yes, and what I said last year is still actually valid. And last year was way ahead of actually assuming a crisis like this one. You need to actually look at your own strength and your preferences as a lawyer, and understand where you actually win and where you lose. And not just actually winning the work that you get, but winning the work that you want, because it relates directly to your particular focus area, to your specialisms and so forth. And from an in-house perspective, it's exactly the other way around. In-house counsel should actually be more selective. So just going to the largest law firms is not necessarily helping them to always actually fix what they're looking for, but they should be more selective in terms of what they're looking for, be specific about the scope of work, but also the specialist expertise they're looking for. And they may rather find it with smaller law firms or solo practitioners compared to the larger ones, because the larger ones are by definition forced to take a broader view of the world, and their portfolios actually doesn't allow it actually to sort of have a specialist just for the fashion industry. So what it means, for instance, for in-house counsel, it's also actually to be more sophisticated in terms of identifying and maintaining relationships with law firms that may not necessarily be easily actually captured on their radar screen. So it's not enough to just actually go through a list of the top 20 and say, okay, this is going to do the job, but also actually look beyond that and look for smaller ones and see what is actually out there, and see who can actually help and be actually a better legal advisor in that regard. So that's the challenge actually also on the in-house side, to just actually move a little bit out of the comfort zone and look closer on who you're dealing with. And as I said, size is not ultimately the matter. the issue that we have in Nigeria, as well as actually, I mean, I worked extensively in Zambia, did a little bit of work in Kenya, and then I'm sure Olivia will have lots of stories to add to this. But South Africa and Southern Africa is a lack of transparency. So there's not one common platform where you can go to and just actually say, okay, show me like the 15,000 attorneys that I got actually in the country or in the state. And then I'll just actually go through their profiles and pick and choose whoever can do the job. So it requires a little bit of actually extra, walking the extra mile in order to find those people who can really help you. But as I say, we can't continue like what we've done before. We need to actually be a bit smarter and also actually try to now use the digital space a bit more productively. And digital will help us. I mean, just looking where you guys all come from. I mean, obviously it would have been easy. I mean, Busola is based in Lagos, but now you can easily actually operate out of River State or come from Delta or wherever, and can actually engage in those discussions, can be part of a bigger community and go even beyond borders and actually hook up with like other smaller law firms elsewhere across the border, for instance. Now, digital offers a lot of actually help in that regard to overcome that limitation in terms of your natural size by headcount. But it has to go hand in hand with specialization.
I hear you correctly, Ignaz. So I have two questions. Many people have the same fears as per the skills. Okay.
I'm sorry, Omo, to cut you. Sorry,
all right.
Omo, to cut
Thank you.
I think people from, okay, so we have panelists for the afternoon sessions joining in also for this morning session. We have Carol with us and we have Astrid, but I think they have a challenge. They cannot hear. So I would like us to, I want us to sort that out so that before we proceed. Astrid, please, can you, what's the challenge? Have you turned on your mic? Carol, I can't see you. Have you turned on your mic? Can you turn on the microphone of on your device? Astrid?
Yes, I'm sorry. Hi.
Okay, so can you hear now?
Yes, I can hear you. Hi.
Okay. Carol, can you hear me? Carol, I can hear. Can you hear me? Are you here?
But I think she is not here because we will start within 2 hours, right, with our talk.
Oh, yes.
Okay, all right then, fine.
Okay. So can I proceed?
Yes, please.
All right. Ignaz, I hear you correctly, and you have said that the small law firms or the solo practice should do two things: specialize and then go digital, or use digital more productively. So if you were to advise on the specifics of the digitalness or digitalization of a small practice, let's say the practice is just me and myself and I, what skill, digital skill, apart from social media, which you've mentioned, I think you had mentioned earlier that somebody specialized in social media marketing for lawyers, but apart from that, what other digital skill do you think lawyers should begin to look at in these times?
First of all, it's a very simple one, but if you go through a law practice general infrastructure, you do have the client-facing side, and this is clearly about social media, but it's also collaborative platforms like Zoom, and being actually knowledgeable and proficient in using those tools. And as I say, Zoom is just a start. There's an interesting tool out there called Miro, where you can actually do joint collaboration, whiteboarding, workshops, ideation, and all of that. And those tools give you now means that we've never had before in order to really explore things. And if you're sitting in Lagos and you want to actually advise a client in River State, it's not that you actually don't have the opportunity anymore to actually make a quick sketch structure or put down actually a structure for a new company organogram or whatever. It does actually work. by electronically, and you can use a sketchboard. So that's on the client-facing side. Then you have your internal actually expertise in terms of knowledge management. So this is all about how do you actually capture and archive what you already know, what you've done, your best practices. And there's smart tools out there without actually sort of favoring one over the other, but even very inexpensive ones, such as like smart forms from, I think it's Wolters Kluwer or LexisNexis. So simple tools, even Google Docs actually does have a couple of like document assembly functionalities that you can quickly use in order to actually not, that you don't draft any contract from scratch, but rather use some best practice clauses, provisions that you've actually already used in the past, and you got them stored in a central and easily recognizable way. Now it's actually called Miro, M-I-R-O. So these are just the ideas, and then you have the typical back office, accounting, billing, those kind of things, perhaps also payroll. Now these days we don't need to sit on local and locally hosted solutions anymore, because we can't afford actually to pay an IT support. So what should we do? I mean, we should actually go online. We go actually to the cloud. And there's plenty out there. There's an Australian tool called Clio, or you can actually look at Practice Panta and others. I mean, in South Africa, we experienced actually growth of these solutions in an exponential way. About 2-3 years ago, we all actually went for local solutions, quite expensive, cost us a fortune. I mean, it was, you know, I'm not even talking about 100,000 Naira. That was much more actually just immediately for something that would not add any value. And it was quite complicated to get it running, error prone and so forth. And these days, if you just actually go to Clear, it gives you all the tools in order to run your practice into, including budgets and so forth. So those are the three things I would look at in terms of actually, how am I doing on a client-facing side? Is my social media activity integrated with my content management system for my website? And, you know, if you look at firms like Law Pavilion and others, they really use technology. And they were also not super big. They were not of the size of Alex and all the other larger law firms. They started small, but they embraced technology as something that would enable them. And you can do the same. Even 2 or 3 practitioners can do it. And there's a couple of examples out there. I mean, Busola may know her. There's a lady actually by the name of Nicoline Skuman-Law, who is at the moment actually, she was actually a traditional conveyancer, notary, and she now actually turned her firm almost in a little tech platform, because they created their own document assembly system for SMEs. And, you know, they started off with 3 lawyers, and now they're much bigger. I think at the moment they have 15, and they have a very, very different business model these days. So it's all about actually being open and not just actually, I know there's certain restrictions in terms of the way we can bill clients, there's reserved work and so forth. We got a lot of these things still actually entrenched in our professional frameworks. But if we actually give up on actually challenging ourselves and in the way we offer service to clients, and on the other hand, also in-house departments giving up on asking for something different and making proposals themselves, we will not actually move to a new platform and new level of excellence.
Thank you so much, Ignaz. So since you mentioned in-house, I was coming to ask on that front, because as you noticed, there are some in-house lawyers here. So what skill would you, so let me take it from this perspective. In Nigeria, and I'm not sure how it happens elsewhere, but generally, if we hear correctly, there's going to be a lot of loss of jobs, and usually corporates will try to cut down on the non-essentials. And we heard somebody speak to us yesterday, and they said that legal has been classified as one of the non-essentials, and so that will mean that corporates will most likely begin to want to downsize it, and then they would reduce their legal departments or their in-house counsel roles. So what would you advise somebody who is in-house to do at this time to become almost indispensable? Yeah, I know nobody's indispensable, but what would you advise someone to do to be an asset to the corporate at this time?
The first advice, if there's any, would be to clearly express the value that one actually offers to the business. And if we look back, historically, in-house departments have been seen as a cost center. You know, if you can't avoid it, you need to go to your in-house legal advisor, because this is just what the process looks like and what the standard operating procedure would actually require you to do. But that has actually led to a perception that you can actually downsize your legal department and nothing else is going to actually impact you after all. So there won't be any ramifications of if you do something like that. So the way to address this is by very rapidly, quickly actually addressing that from a value perspective and making clear that you as a legal advisor, you are like IT specialist, you're an enabler of the business. If you actually get retrenched, there's a specific actually function missing in terms of guarding, being the guardian of the brand, being the chief risk officer, being the one actually also creating a certain cohesion in terms of compliance systems and so forth. Now that may sound very academic, but what it is in reality is you need to make sure that the non-legal people in the firm actually understand that legal is not something that you can up or downsize as you like. It will have actually implications. The other thing is, realistically, none of us can actually escape the do more for less paradigm. I mean, if there is not enough money for all the business functions, then it will also hit legal. But the work will not disappear. At the moment, we rather actually have more work than ever. And I was busy yesterday drafting a couple of like a summary of the latest implications of COVID on all the areas in a legal department from a content perspective. And it's everything. It's around health, safety, environment. It's around the whole comp and ben space. It's around corporate structures. It's about competition law. So, you know, it's not going to get actually any boring for someone actually working in-house department these days, because the VARAD is basically touching on almost any area you could think of, including so exotic actually provisions like a infection protection law or whatever you may have in that regard and so forth. So that means more work, but you won't have the same actually amount of resources and you may not have the same leeway. So as an in-house department, the only way to escape this trap is if you have managed to actually clearly articulate your value to the business, in particular to the executive level. The second step is you need to look at the way you operate. And the way you operate means how do you actually manage a matter? How much can you actually do also in terms of allowing business people to use certain self-service options? Are you actually drafting an NDA from scratch every single time? Or do you have a little tool where you provide them, whoever is actually requesting a new NDI, that they actually can do it themselves, and you provide basically you define and prescribe actually the boundaries in that regard. So it's about, some would call it legal project management. I call it just getting better organized. And better organized meaning actually applying certain principles of proactive management, managing the process itself. And also understanding where you actually would rather go outside for somebody to help you than actually trying to do this yourself. And there's certain aspects where it may make more sense to take work away from the external counsel and move it in-house. But that requires a very informed and structured discussion in terms of what the service portfolio should look like. And technology, again, will help.
Clearly, technology will help. Thank you so much, Ignaz, for the insights. I do not see any question that you've not addressed in the chat room. At this point, I would just like to turn the table to Busola to continue. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much, Ignaz, for that insightful presentation and for taking the time to also address the questions posed at you. For me, the question I would ask is, with all that you have said, what business development strategies do you think, or would you advise that lawyers should begin to adopt, particularly for those who are on the field, those who are, solo practitioners, those who are law firm owners? What business strategies should they begin to adopt? And would you also support diversification? Because I am leaning towards we diversifying into other areas. So for instance, in this season, we've seen a whole lot of content creators coming up and doing their thing. We've seen a whole lot of people coming up with storytelling, to promote their businesses, their courses and all. And one of the skills that I think, or I believe we have as legal practitioners, as lawyers, is our creative writing skills. A lot of us, we do a whole lot of letter writing. We do a whole lot of letter writing. Just yesterday, somebody was commending the SLB team for the newsletter we keep sending out and saying, oh, I love the style of communication. So would you advise that lawyers begin to also look at diversifying into other areas where they have existing skills? You're a good writer. You can write very well, brilliantly well. You don't need to go. You don't need to take any course or training in that. Can you and such people diversify to become content creators? What other areas or what business development skills or strategies would you recommend?
See, one has to be careful, because we all don't want to end up as publishers or publishing houses, creating content for the sake of content, and nobody's going to read it. So yes, it's important actually to differentiate between legal drafting and commercial writing skills, and that has to be learned, and we need to actually acquire those skills. But see, let me actually sort of articulate and communicate that in very simple terms. First of all, I believe the first business development activity is make it easy for clients to get in touch with you, and just look at the ways you interact. Look at the ways you actually, if you actually, for instance, I've seen this actually with a smaller law firm over here. They during COVID times, they just posted they have a special sort of pop-in working hour between like 4 to 6 o'clock, and you could just phone in, and you knew there would be somebody around, and you could just actually offload. And so it was predictable, it was easy. They gave a special number, and they had enough people actually picking up the phone. So convenience. In-house departments should not actually worry about ways to get in touch with you, and vice versa. You need to be found. So if you're not present anywhere, and nobody knows you, how would you ever actually find a client if you don't actively talk to them? So you need to critically reflect on, am I visible? Can people actually reach me? And is it easy or difficult? And in general, is it difficult to work with me? Because my invoices, look at your invoices and ask yourself, if you were a client, I would like to receive an invoice like that may be completely unstructured. It may not be easy to read. It may be difficult to figure out what you've actually done and so forth. Just actually do some introspection. The second part would be interest. Clients don't like people who don't listen. So sometimes it's good for us actually in the legal profession, in private practice, to say actually in sorry for my French, in bold terms, to just shut up and listen and ask questions to clients and listen, because this is what it's all about. I mean, our clients actually do have a story to tell, and we need to understand what the story is all about. And so therefore it's not about us, it's about the clients. So on the other hand also, and this goes out to those in-house counsel amongst ourselves, is also be willing to share. Because if you actually keep silent and just take what you hear, and then you're not actually providing the full picture of what the matter is all about, it will never be a fruitful bilateral conversation. Then the next one is actually relevance. So this is talking directly to the aspect that you mentioned, Busola. Yes, content is nice, but if you go to LinkedIn at the moment, and I know Deloitte is actually guilty of doing that as well, because it's sometimes very difficult to sort of manage all the energy that's in the room, and that's true for all of us around the globe. But there's more of the same out there. There's a lot of the same out there. And, you know, first of all, if the document is like 20 pages long, who's going to read this? Who does have the time at the moment to read something like that? So if you come along with a quick, actually, snippet, and I've seen some of the, and I must say, I highly actually praise those who attended last year, and I've seen some ways they actually did it actually in terms of content marketing on LinkedIn. They provide quick snippets, quick overviews on wills, on conveyancing real estate, and all of that. So whoever someone is at the moment, I mean, take care. So they really got the concept of content marketing, being specific, being practical, pragmatic, and being actually and offering value for money, or value for no money, but value for reputation, that is actually talking to our environment and not just actually another academic paper. And I saw a question also on, you know, value is directly linked to fees. If you pay from an in-house perspective for something where you believe the value is actually lower than what you've actually paid for, how often will you actually go back to the same attorney? So the question is, how do you identify value, and how is that actually working from a practitioner's point of view? And it's very easy. You ask, you say, okay, first of all, where was actually your subject matter, and your subject matter and the matter that you're actually handing over is way beyond a technical solution. It's the experience. And that's something we need to make clear to ourselves. We're creating experiences, and clients actually can expect us actually to do our utmost in order to deliver it. Now, in order to have that experience, again, I need a counterpart who's willing to share what they actually expect, what the expectations look like. And if that comes together and I do all the right things, I create value. And value does have a price tag. So if you're actually charging not enough for the value, then you're as guilty as the ones who overcharge. And that's exactly, but for that, the only way to resolve this is listening and someone on the other side sharing. And that you need to do everything in terms of business development in order to foster those actually patterns.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Somebody had said in the group that they thoroughly benefited from your insights as an in-house counsel. I think, I'm not sure, but I think that Olivia might be ready for us now.
I was about to say, she has probably lots to share from that.
Yeah.
And Kenya is a very sophisticated, and you know, one last sentence, if I may. Busola, where I disagree with you, and you know I agree with a lot of things you do, but I disagree on what you said in terms of who's more advanced and who's not. Because I don't
was the
think
one that
Europe
said
is,
that. I apologize. Almost said it.
yeah, Europe is not more advanced than actually any African jurisdiction. The economic situation may be different, but what we have in Africa, and that's our biggest asset, we don't have all the legacy. If you do something different in Germany, in France, in Italy, wherever, there will always be people who tell you, look, we've been doing this for 150 years. It's so great. Why should we change? If you go with actually the latest ideas, actually to someone in Nigeria would say, fantastic, let's do it. You know, that's something we need to consciously take up and always remind us. We don't have this sort of this scrapyard and dump of history that's preventing us from moving forward. We don't have all these legacies. Sometimes it's we're immediately actually able to move from greenfield to the most advanced actually environment, and therefore we should not actually underrate our also competitiveness in that regard. So therefore, I do disagree with this statement because I believe it's not reflective of the actual situation. So in terms of legal tech and in terms of certain, what I've experienced around introduction of legal project management and so forth, I mean, African jurisdictions are at least on eye level, if sometimes not ahead, because of that situation. So let's you know, and also, and take it from where it comes. Let's be proud Africans here. And there's no need actually to put ourselves down and rate us actually below par for that reason, because we have an environment that's actually conducive. We got fantastic incubators. We just need to also find the confidence of recognizing that. And therefore, I believe that what we're going to hear from Olivia, I mean, as I said, Nigeria is an interesting market. There's a lot going on in Kenya also in terms of the tech hubs, and that's together also with Southern Africa. You know, this is something we can really actually thrive on and leverage, and let's do that.
Olivia is clapping. Olivia is clapping. Yes, and thank you, Ignaz, for that. And I quickly want to say something to, with respect to what you said. Sorry, Olivia, you'll come on shortly. In terms of creating content, particularly on LinkedIn. About 2 days ago, and this is to us, you know, everyone here who is listening. About 2 days ago, I told them in the SLB community that please, because I see a lot of people doing this, and going forward from now, particularly in this time that we are in now, you cannot afford to do that anymore. Particularly if you want to stand out and you want to be seen and you actually want to attract good briefs, you can't be doing that any longer. And what was it I said to them? I said, if all you do on LinkedIn or on other social media pages is for you to share people's content, you don't create a content of your own. If all that is on your activity sheet on LinkedIn is sharing of people's content, liking people's content, and commenting on their content, that is not an engagement, and that will not bring you any form of visibility. It won't bring you any form of visibility, because as lawyers, we are intellectuals, and people want to tap from your intellectual prowess. They want to know how your mind works, how your mind operates. So you need to be able to put your thoughts out there all the time. If you are looking at, you know, connecting with people, we are looking at having quality engagement. You're looking at people engaging with you, or you're looking at people getting you giving you briefs, giving you jobs. You need to always put out content. You need to always put out content, and they have to be valuable content. It's not about posting there are some people here that post other people's content. I'm not saying there's anything bad in you doing that, but if that's the only thing you do on LinkedIn, then you have no business being on LinkedIn. You have no business being on LinkedIn, posting other people's content, sharing other people's content, commenting, and you are not putting out your own content. You are not engaging intellectually with us. Then there's no point being on LinkedIn. So if you're looking at quality engagements, people engaging with you, or trying to get briefs on social media, you have to engage aggressively and qualitatively. I just thought to mention that. So I would hand over to MC to continue.
Okay, Busola, thank you so much for that. Olivia, we are going to have you now. Thank you. I see you're ready for us. I'm not
Yes, I
sure
am.
there's any need for us to introduce you anymore, as Ignaz has given us a proper perspective as to the fact that Kenya has more technical advancements than Nigeria because of the technology drive in Kenya. All I'll just say is that my daughter rather, shares your name, Olivia. So I'm sure that after listening to the intelligent conversation you give today, I'll be glad that I named her after you. Olivia, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Omo. But I cannot continue without appreciating Ignaz. Ignaz gave such a great talk. He was very honest on a lot of points, and I just love what he spoke about confidence. He also talked about us as African lawyers improving our inefficiencies and There was so much that for me I'd already prepared to talk about today, and he touched on productivity and thinking about how are we going to have connections with our clients. I just want to shout out to Ignaz from Kenya. Ignaz, I think you did a fantastic job. I want to start by saying that, you know, we've been called on this platform, and many of us are doing these webinars, and we are being presented as experts. But for me, I want to give a small qualifier, and I say, while I have helped some very big firms in Africa navigate through times of crisis, none of us have gone through what we're going through now. And so the knowledge that I'm gonna share today, yes, I'm drawing back from, you know, what I've worked on in the past and my knowledge of working with clients and with some of these big law firms, but no one prepared us for this. For all of us, we are definitely in uncharted territory. So the first thing I want to talk about and address is just the paralysis that some of you may be feeling. I almost said that many of you in the group have small businesses. Some of you, many of you are solo practitioners, or maybe you have one or two partners. I know that some of you are alumni of SLB, which is what Busola has been doing so well. And so I want to first address the paralysis that some of us may be feeling. Just yesterday, I was in a webinar and speaking to some Kenyan lawyers who run some small to mid-sized firms, and we were a group of professionals drawn from different disciplines. And the one thing that many of us tended to pinpoint is that many of the lawyers in the webinar were feeling that things are so bad that we just need to pause and just wait for this cloud to pass. As Ignaz showed us, there's so many outcomes. There's so many things that will happen and so many projections on it could go like this, it could go like this, it could go like this. I know it's very hard to have a positive perspective when no one knows what the outcome really will be. But what I want to advise you as far as business development goes and managing client and attorney relationship, I want you to come out from that paralysis. I don't want you to take a step back and just freeze and think, okay, I'm gonna get back to maintaining and engaging with my clients when this is over. So that's the one thing I don't want you to do. I don't want you to wait for the cloud to be over. Ignaz has already talked about us being proactive and us changing our perspective. And that's one thing I want to emphasize as well. So many of us may have started the year 2020 with a strategy of how we are going to acquire clients, how we're going to retain our current clients, and how we're going to acquire new clients. I think what you want to do, first of all, if you haven't already done so, is just ditch your long-term strategy. In a time where things are so fluid and we can't tell what's about to happen, I want to advise you to kind of take a day-to-day approach and see how's the situation unfolding. How can I be agile? How can I respond to what's happening in the environment? The one thing when I do a lot of my talks with lawyers across the continent, one thing I've found is that lawyers, we often don't rely on data to make our business development and our strategy decisions. Ignaz highlighted this when he was talking with those first few slides of what's going to happen, where it's going to happen, why we'll see certain trends. If there's anything I want to re-emphasize, if there's anything I want to also leave you with, there's so much news right now. There's so much negative news around the pandemic itself, around what our governments are doing, around what's happening beyond our own borders. I really also want you to think about basing your BD decisions right now on sound data. Be very sure that when you're making a decision that you are using data, and you're being proactive about this. The next building block to how to maintain a client-attorney relationship is going to be empathy. We're good lawyers. We are good lawyers. I've worked with big law firms, I've worked with small law firms, and like Ignaz, for me, I am so proud of my continent. I'm proud of the legal minds that are in this continent. We have some great lawyers. It doesn't matter what size you are. As you know, when Busola was saying that we are intellectuals, we have some very good intellectuals just within this continent. So it's not that we are bad lawyers. No, I believe that we are good lawyers. But tell you what this pandemic is going to teach us. It's going to teach us to be better communicators. We are good lawyers, yes, but if there's anything we need to learn, in addition to talking about adapting technology to digitize our practices, one big thing that we need to do as lawyers is learn how to communicate better with our clients. So the very first thing we need to do is to build empathy. And that's now even more complicated because we don't have the advantage of seeing our clients face to face. We don't have the advantage of doing a lot of in-person meetings. And even for some of us who are doing Zoom and GoToMeeting and other webinars, it's hard to have a proper client conversation and focus on a client maybe when you have children in the background and other family members. But it is very important to us right now to dig deep and find out, am I connecting with my client? Am I connecting with my client? So empathy is one big thing that we need to learn. And Ignaz said, the game has shifted. The game has shifted. Money has become scarce. The situation is unpredictable. People are anxious about a lot of things. The one thing we need to do as lawyers is not act like, we need your money and to come across as being overly commercial to the point where we don't show our clients that we are part of community, we are part of their communities, that we are interested in their success, that we are there to help them and to help them navigate this situation and beyond. So one thing we need to do is to communicate with our clients, communicate with empathy, communicate very often, reduce the anxiety in their world that they're already feeling from whatever is going on around them. So empathy is key. Don't go quiet, even if it's very tempting right now to be overwhelmed with everything. Stay in touch with your clients. Don't hide behind automated mass email. Some firms, immediately this happened when we started going into lockdown in our different cities, one of the first responses was, hey, this is what we're doing. But I wonder how many of us actually took the time to send personalized emails or to make calls, like that law firm that Ignaz was talking about, that they realized their clients still needed, people to talk to within their firm. How many of us have actually shown our clients that this is how you can still reach me? How many of us have taken the time to call and check on a client? So beyond thinking just about our bottom line and what we are going through, I want to encourage you to personalize your communication. I want to encourage you to dig deeper and be more empathetic about what your clients are going through. Stay in touch with them, as tempting as it is to go quiet right now and just be paralyzed. Try as much as possible. The next thing is to make the most of these e-meetings that we're having, to at least form connections. And what you can do to do that is to be a better listener. Again, this is a point I'm actually pleasantly surprised and happy that Ignaz touched on. Though we are finding that it's very limiting to be able to have proper conversations with our clients virtually, I want to encourage you to listen. I want you to encourage you to listen and to listen very well when you do have this type of conversation. What is the client not saying? Another thing you can do about client listening is even when you're not on a call, even when it's not in an email, you can listen to what's happening in your client's industry. So to the point of what I was talking about data, how about you do something as simple as setting up Google Alerts? Google Alerts are free of charge if you have a Gmail account. And the reason they'll be so handy, and I know there's so much noise. I mean, again, Ignaz talked about this. Even when you go on LinkedIn, there's so much content from law firms, so much content from industry. But if you do have clients in a specific industry, if you know your clients are in a particular sector, I want to encourage you not to just know about what's going on, the broad overview of what the pandemic will do to their sector, but dig deeper and listen to what's going on. And one easy way is just automate it. If you're busy, there's so much going on right now, use tools like Google Alerts to just keep your finger on the pulse on what's going on with your clients. And ask them questions. So Google Alerts is one thing. Another thing I want to talk to you about is something I call the mirror principle, different from the app that Ignaz talked about. The mirror principle is my own creation. And from working as an in-house BD manager in different firms, I've seen a trend with in-house counsel. I've seen a trend with corporates, and I see that there's some in-house counsel lawyers here like Queen. I saw Queen, I think, earlier, and it's great to have you guys as well here. Fantastic to have this type of collaboration. So one thing that I've seen working in business development is that clients tend to mirror what they are going through to the relationships they have with external counsel. I'll give you an example. In the last few years, for instance, cybersecurity, data protection has become, an even more important factor for some in-house counsel, especially multinationals, when they're dealing with external counsel. And because they themselves inside their own companies are facing this pressure of how are we taking care of our data, you see that reflected when they're engaging with you as external counsel. They reflect back that to you, and they ask you tough questions around how are you protecting our data? How do you protect the data within your own firm? How do you regulate, what employees have access to us? I call it the mirror principle, because what tends to happen in the conversations we have with clients is that if it's becoming a headache to them in their own environment, one way or another, it has a spillover effect. So the same way Ignaz was saying, now that, budgets are tight, people are holding on to cash. One thing that clients will be forcing us to address as lawyers is, what is our worth? What is the value of what you're giving to me? Can you demonstrate? I have a tight budget. We don't have a lot, lying around to invest in our external counsel budget. So that's why it also goes to communication, but it also goes to how do you make a return on investment now that we're being told, money is tight, there isn't a lot of liquidity. One thing is also to eliminate your own inefficiencies, to work as productively and as efficiently as you can so that you're able to get a good return on investment. So that's what I wanted to put out there. The next thing, and I picked this up also from what Ignaz was saying, that the game is going to shift. International companies are maybe going to move from certain jurisdictions and move to others. What you need to demonstrate at this point is also that flexibility in building cultural awareness. Who will be your new client? Maybe you are used to working with clients in a particular sector, clients from a particular country. That's why I said this pandemic will force us to be better communicators. What you need to do now is also then build up your cultural awareness of what will my 2020, 2021 client be like? Will they be a corporate? Will they be a corporate residing in X jurisdiction or in my state or in my city? What will they look like? And start to build that cultural awareness, because the way you deal with a client from the East is different from how you deal with a client from the West. As Ignaz says, workflows, processes, even how different firms and different clients communicate is different based on where they are. So that's another thing that we need to build up on. The next thing is there's a whole conversation on this very little business, and Busola asked this, so what business development strategies should we be focusing on right now? One thing I always say is that, business development is not about just getting new work. Business development, I say, has four main components. So I say business development is about attracting work, so attracting new clients who have never worked with you before. The next thing is winning that work, so convincing and demonstrating that value. And then the third component is delivering good work. Delivering good work, so being a lawyer of integrity and making sure, that which I promised the client from the beginning when I attracted them to my firm, I do deliver it. And that goes to the processes that we use to deliver good work. Not committing certain processes to memory, but using things like workflow management tools, how you manage your billing, being transparent with things, for instance, like your time tracking. And I'll be talking about some of the tools that no matter what size of firm you are representing today on this call, I'm going to be talking about some of the tools that you can use to automate your workflow, to make your processes automated, work faster and more seamless. So I'll be talking about that. So there's delivering good work. And then finally, and I want you to listen very closely, is retention. Retention. In marketing, we have something we call customer lifetime value. So I'm Kenyan and I like to run, no surprise there. And because I like to run, I'm very selective about, when I buy running shoes, where I buy those running shoes. So let me give you a scenario of if I bought a pair of running shoes from Nike, for instance. What will often happen is if I like that pair of shoes and they, the shoes serve me well, they improve my speed, they're just comfortable, I get less injuries with them. Chances are the next time I need a pair of running shoes, guess where I'll go back? I'll go back to the Nike shop in Nairobi. So this is what I want to tell you. Right now, everyone is thinking there'll be nowhere coming in. I want you, like Ignaz, and I think Astrid also chimed in on this about changing your perspective. Let's also talk about, can we retain the work that we do already have? Can I focus on retaining the clients that I already have? Whether it's through, retainers, whether it's through doing things like upsells and downsells, where you diversify yourself and you show them, I know you work with me on this type of thing, but I can foresee that there's going to be this problem or there are these questions that you may have, and this is how I can continue to serve you. Or maybe you have partners that you work with, and maybe then you can cross-sell. And maybe right now, there isn't a lot of work in your area of specialization, but maybe your practice can still benefit by cross-selling and seeing what other expertise do we have as partners that is, that there may be a demand for. So customer lifetime value, not just thinking about the new clients who are not coming in, but thinking about, what do I have in my hand? What do I have in my hand? I've seen this work for a lot of clients who I talk to, and I'm like, you're telling me to help you build your business, but what do you currently have? What relationships do you already have that are existing? People who've worked with you, like your work, you have a good rapport. Don't reinvent the wheel. Try right now to focus on your retention strategies, how you can retain the clients who you already know, clients who already have experienced your work, they have possibly already paid you fees for your work, and maybe right now things are quiet, but definitely stay in touch with them. That's very easy. Another way to also increase your customer lifetime value is little things, for instance, like, because we're saying money is tight right now, to be very transparent as a lawyer. And so I'll talk about this later when I talk about things like time tracking, and when we're talking about clients asking you tough questions about what are you worth and why am I paying this amount of money. The next thing is, when we talk about your retention strategies, then we need to talk about your productivity, because you only have so much time in the day, you only have so much money right now. You must be cutting back on a lot of things given the current economic situation. So what do you need to do? This is not, it's nothing, you might have heard it actually, maybe in business management classes or somewhere else or on LinkedIn, but there's something called the Pareto principle. So the Pareto principle is about the law of the vital few. So in a time where we don't have a lot of time, we don't have a lot of money, when you're asking yourself which relationships you should focus on, first of all, you need to focus on your vital few clients, those key clients. So the key clients where you get most of your work from. Do you know that math? Have you done that math? Have you done an analysis? Have you actually looked back and said, these are the top contacts? I'm not saying we neglect the rest, but you're like, this is where I need to focus my efforts. And if I focus my efforts here, I will get a lot of return on investment on it. So use the Pareto principle to they say the 80-20 rule. So you say 80% of your results get from just 20% of your work or 20% of your clients. So you need to identify who are your 20%. On this, still continuing with the subject of maintaining your client, the client-attorney relationship. Now, Ignaz said some good things about African lawyers, but I'm hoping I'll be invited to another webinar by Busola after I say what I'm about to say. African lawyers, sometimes we're also not known for being very responsive and reliable. And now that things are going virtual, and please guys, don't hate on me. I thought I just need to be honest about this. After having worked with many firms across the region and even worked with firms who are, in some of the big cities globally, one thing that we don't get praised for is our responsiveness, our reliability. Yeah. So yes, the world is shifting and we'll be doing a lot of things using technology, but that also demands that we are reliable. How do we become reliable? How do we make sure that we are responsive, we are available, but still draw boundaries between, our personal lives? Because I don't know about you, though the game is shifting and we're being told to pivot. Now more than ever, we are also reminding ourselves about the importance of our families, our loved ones, the people around us, our neighbors and the communities around us. So one way to do this is to set clear expectations on when you're available, how you're available to clients. Another thing is to leverage technology like calendar, online scheduling tools to manage your time and to give clients that predictability and control that they can reach you and book and have a call with you or book some time with you quite easily electronically. Another thing you could do, and it sounds so simple, is just set up an autoresponder. And I know that many clients know that already we're working from home, we're in lockdown, it's not business as usual. But I would advise you, that autoresponder we usually put when we're going home for a long weekend or public holiday or something, I want to advise you to actually set up an autoresponder. A simple autoresponder that explains to your clients, I'm working from home and this is when you can expect to hear it, and then follow through. If you say 24 hours, 12 hours responses, 12-hour responses, it doesn't matter if like me currently, because of juggling homeschooling with the kids, I'm actually finding myself working in the middle of the night just to be able to juggle everything. But I realized when I communicated to clients, even in my own consultancy, that listen, there may be some late night work getting done. So for me, end of day is no longer, 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. anymore. So the expectation you can have is, for me, it's midnight, it's 2 a.m., but I'll get the job done. So let's set those boundaries and let's set those clear expectations so that the clients have, that aspect of, they have, you basically settle their any uneasiness that they may have. So reliability and responsiveness is another thing that I want you to really consider. Omo, I don't know if I still have time because I know that there are other speakers who are about to come, but I wanted to talk about how to maintain top of mind awareness. We've talked about maintaining personal communication, knowing which are those vital relationships I can't afford to switch off right now, I need to stay in touch with. Building empathy. Let's talk about how to build top of mind awareness. And remember earlier I talked about, please don't be paralyzed. Visibility is key. Again, I've been on other webinars and there's this whole debate of big firm versus smaller law firms, who's going to be a winner. In many respects, we are all going to lose one way or another. The pandemic in itself is touching us, whether it's physically, social, it has touched all areas of our lives. So there is no, I can't see that anyone who's going to say I'm a winner in this thing. In a way, we are all losing something. But at the same time, who has more opportunities than the other? The big firms have been doing a lot in terms of sharing content. Some even have websites just dedicated to COVID. And you might be wondering, Olivia, we can't compete with that. I totally get it. What you have, and Busola talked about just using things like LinkedIn to build your visibility. And she talked about even how we connected on LinkedIn and look at what we're doing now, collaborating. So I want to encourage you to use free tools like LinkedIn to build your visibility. The world is going to go virtual. There won't be a lot of conferences and meetings, cocktails happening in the future. So let's already begin to, if we've been disrupted, let's go the whole hog. And let's start to use tools that don't require a lot of money, are very easy to use. Another thing you need to remember is that LinkedIn, they say, is actually one of the best B2B tools. So B2B tools are not business to consumer like, the telecos and the FMCG companies, but for lawyers, this is one of the best tools out there. So going on LinkedIn is one way to build that top of mind awareness. Another one is content marketing. I'm from the school of thought, that Ignaz has subscribed to right now, where there's so much content that's all the same right now. What I wanted to offer you is, how do you stand out from the crowd? There are other lawyers already writing content. How do you stand out from the crowd? One thing I want to tell you is that articles won't cut it. People are writing 3,000, 5,000 word articles. And if you've written an article, well done, at least you did something. But statistics, if you use data to make your decision and ask yourself, what type of content are people gravitating to? Number one, it should be short form content. It should be highly visual. Now, what type of content are we talking about? If it's on LinkedIn, LinkedIn has a feature where you can create nice graphic PDFs. What you want to do is to say what you want to say with fewer words and very good graphics. And then if you use a PowerPoint to do that and you upload it on LinkedIn, you want to make it very simple to scroll and very easy to read even on LinkedIn when someone is scrolling through their feed. The next thing you want to think about is sharing your content in form of video. You don't need a camera to do this. There are tools, for instance, a tool called Animoto, which is very easy. It's almost like PowerPoint. You put in your text and it creates an animated video for you. Another tool that's very easy for you to create highly visual content that's very easy to read, but very attractive, that will stand out from the crowd, even if you're not a graphic designer. I know you went to law school, not to a creative arts school. But another tool that you could use is Canva. So Canva. So Canva is one tool that you can use. It's so easy. I just see a comment from Muna. Muna, thank you so much for the shout out. Adejoke, I have Canva and the tools that I'm mentioning actually on my site. I created a free download just for this COVID-19 pandemic for African lawyers who are struggling with their productivity, mental health, so with content marketing. So www.firmgrown.com is my site, and right there you can download for free. You can download some of the tools, and the other tools also I'll be mentioning. And so if you want to check,
Olivia,
yes,
sorry to
please.
cut you.
Yeah,
Please just continue with your conversation. At the end, you can drop the
the chat.
websites. Yes, in the
No
chat.
problem. No
Thank
problem.
you. All right.
Sorry, I saw questions from people asking about the tools, and I was saying I think I can go on with the content, and the tools they'll get later.
Okay.
So
Why I said so is you seem to have, you are giving a lot of value, and I think you have something prepared in front of you. So
thank you.
the questions may be distracting. We will come back to them, or just run your slides off, please. All
Thank
right.
you so
Thank you
much,
very
Omo.
much. Okay.
I see why you're the best MC. Thank you so much, Omo. So back to what we're talking about, standing out from the crowd. So I was telling you guys, even before COVID, the trends on LinkedIn and on other channels, video is what you want to go with. Tools, content like infographics is something that are easy to consume. So that's much more preferable than the long form articles or the Google Docs documents and PDFs that I've been seeing people sharing. Another way to stand out from the crowd is specialization. When everyone is giving a broad overview of what it would mean for employee contracts, what you want to do is single out a particular industry and say, I'm going to look at the impact of employment contracts, maybe in the medical industry or in the education industry. So one way to make your content stand out from the crowd is to narrow down. And I talk about this in the course I have called Personal Branding Roadmap. And I think Ignaz also mentioned this about knowing what your strengths are. So how do you know what areas you should be specializing in? I think number one, I always say, I use a tool called Copper, and I say, number one, do you have knowledge of that area? You don't want to be a quack. So we're talking about diversifying and being agile and checking out what do people have a demand for if they don't need my conveyancing services right now. Yes, we are saying that, but number one, you don't want to be a quack. So number one is, what do I have knowledge over? Aside from my traditional practice areas, what else do I know very well? The next thing is, what does the market really need right now? You don't want to supply something that the market doesn't need. The next thing you want to check about is that, can I make a profit from this? Is there something that's lucrative? So does it make commercial sense? Another thing is there an advantage? Do I have something that gives me a competitive edge in this area? So specialize and narrow down your content. Another thing you want to think about is search engine optimization. So I know many of us, if you run a smaller firm, you don't have the luxury of having a business development person or a graphic designer or a digital marketer helping you to push your content like some of the big firms do. So what you can do is just Google is your friend. Google is your friend in a very big way. And so when you go to Google, and you just have a list of some of the words that come to mind when you think about that industry or that issue you want to write on. So if it's employment contracts, then you put the name of the industry that you're serving, whether it's fashion, sports, whether it's manufacturing, or aviation, whatever it is. Start to type out words on Google just at the search bar. And you know what Google starts to do? Google starts to make suggestions, but those suggestions are actually based on what other people have been searching on. So here it is. A lot of times content marketers pay for software that tells them what is popular right now. But actually Google, for 0 naira, can actually do this for you. So when you go to Google, I want you to start paying attention, because Google will also tell you other people are searching for these other words. Those things that you're saying people are searching for are things that you should answer in your content. are things that you can write on. That means that there's a gap. People are looking for answers. There are problems they're having. There are problems they're having related to those topics that you're seeing Google is suggesting there. So start mining for content. Don't just write and, you know, kind of regurgitate what you remember from university on a particular area. Listen to the market. One easy way to do it is just with your smartphone or with your laptop by doing this. So the beauty about content right now is a lot of us are in groups, whether as a community, whether as families. And so if you do create this video content, infographics, and this, you know, highly visual content we're talking about, the chances of it going beyond just your primary audience right now the chances are very high. Let me explain. We're on WhatsApp communities. You send something to Omo and to Busola, and I'm in another group. Like Busola said, she's in a group with other South African lawyers. She passes it on to them. So it's not all doom and gloom. There is a silver lining right now in terms of content marketing. In fact, they're saying right now, you know, such content marketing, you know, it's never known better days. People are consuming content. You almost kind of have a captive audience. People don't have as many distractions as they had with the commute and going to the office. And so right now is a good time to create content and stand out from the crowd. Like Ignaz was saying, you know, if you're a smaller firm and you're trying to think it's already hard for bigger firms, what can I do? That additional value of good visuals, specializing, leveraging the fact that people are already right now in communities can help you get your content shared in groups such as, you know, WhatsApp and other platforms right now. So that's another thing. Another thing you can take advantage of is to build your personal brand. To build your personal brand right now. And as almost said, many of you run, you know, smaller firms and you're ambitious, and you, even though this is going on, you do want to continue to build your name. You want to build your reputation. So one simple way to do this is use a tool like LinkedIn, not only to network with people, but to publish your content. Now, this I think will be very beneficial to some of you who may not have a website, or maybe you are working on a website, or maybe right now you don't have the budget to have someone help you update the content on your website. It's very easy to use LinkedIn's free publishing tool to help you create content consistently very easily. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is productivity. Let me take just give you my backstory very fast because I'm cognizant we need to move to other panelists and move away from this discussion. Is that when you're now servicing clients, because we have been disrupted as lawyers, you will have to depend on technology. And for many of us, we're going through change management and not knowing where do I start. Ignaz already talked about, you know, thinking about, you know, your client-facing side, your back office. How do you actually manage the project when a client actually, you know, gives you the brief? I want to talk about some of the tools that we can use to manage these different aspects of BD, from when, you know, the client intake process to when I'm actually, you know, doing the research, the knowledge management. Where are my tools? Where are my tools? My templates, where are they? Where have I saved them? Do I have them ready to improve and remove those inefficiencies that we're talking about? So here are a couple of tools, and almost said we'll be talking more about the tools later. So one tool that you can use for your client intake is just simple old Google Forms. Another tool you can use to manage your schedule right now, if you don't have a PA right now, you're all working remotely, you can use a tool like Acuity and Calendly to make it easy for clients to be able to, you know, to book an appointment with you. The cool thing about tools like Acuity, a tool like Acuity, I mean, it integrates with a tool like GoToMeeting and Zoom to make it simple for you. If you integrate and if you use a tool like Acuity, clients get to do 2 steps instead of 1. They not only get to, you set your availability and say, I'm available at this time, yeah, on the back end, and it shows up in your Google Calendar, whatever tool you're using. But what clients have an advantage is they can see your calendar using a link that you can share with them privately, or for some of you, you can embed it on your website. And what they simply have to do is say what time works for them, but immediately they book a time, they also get a video conferencing link automatically. So there's no back and forth of what tool are we using, what time do I need to join in. Another thing that these tools will do, because here we are juggling homeschooling and so many other things, right? It also can set up reminders. So we're removing those inefficiencies and even thinking and being empathetic that our clients are dealing with a lot. So tools like Acuity and Calendly are tools that can help you do this. They can help your clients do online scheduling. The next thing is for your billing. Ignaz mentioned some tools already. I've heard of Clio as well, Practice Panther. And yes, in fact, in Kenya, there are a lot of local software creators who have created solutions for small and mid-sized firms. It used to be here in Kenya, if you needed software to manage your firm, you'd have to fork out a big deal of money. And so for a long time, it was only the big law firms who would access certain law firm management technologies, but there are definitely tools out there. I know even in Zimbabwe, there are other Zimbabwe, I've heard of a creator who I'm connected with on LinkedIn. I'll have to look up his name and his connection and his links and everything. But he's also providing African lawyers with tools to manage their law firm processes. So there are definitely solutions out there. Other tools may not be tools created for law firms per se, but if you're on a budget, you could make them work for you. So some CRM management tools are 17 Hats. Another tool you may want to look at is a tool called Dopsado. So Dopsado can help you, for instance, do your client intake, your client books a call, your letter of engagement is already up on it. If there's an invoice that needs to go out, you set it up once, you set up how much tax you need to calculate on each invoice as you're billing. You set up reminders for your workflow. When do you need to do a bring up? When do you need to have the next client meeting? You can do it all on a tool like Dopsado. Another tool I think that is important to mention here is Asana. Ignaz again talked about now more than ever, because clients are really big on value. We really need to ask ourselves as lawyers, how are we managing our time? How are we managing our clients' projects? So project management is key, and usually I found a lot of lawyers just commit things to memory. This is a good time for us to manage and write out our workflow. How do I manage a client from point A to Z? What documents do I need along the way? How often do I need to communicate with the client? What's the checklist I need to do before I go to step this? What are the time estimates? So a tool you can use to do this is a tool called Asana. It's free of charge if you just use your business email. It's very good, and it will also help you eliminate going between your email and back and forth trying to complete a project. And the nice thing is it also integrates with your Google Calendar, and it can help you also when you wake up in the morning. For instance, if you have recurring tasks that you need to do and you set them up to maybe a weekly frequency, monthly frequency or whatever, it helps you stay on top of things. And I think that's important right now because we're dealing with so much right now, as individuals, as lawyers, as in our own families. So Asana can kind of help you just stay on top of different things, though you're working on different tasks. It can also help you collaborate with colleagues and clients who are working away from you. So if you're managing a complex transaction, for instance, with a client, you can actually set up critical dependencies, and the client, even wherever they are seeing in their Google Calendar that you need X from them before you go to the next step in the process. So Asana is another tool. Now I know a lot of us have been using WhatsApp to talk with our colleagues, but because of client confidentiality, I want to really ask you to be very cautious on where you are sharing client documents and client updates. And notwithstanding the fact that some of our clients, even for me, some of my own clients are reaching out to me right now on WhatsApp, I want you as much as possible to remember that, you have a responsibility to take care and to guard the confidentiality of your clients, the correspondence you have with your clients, and the documents and the information you have with them in regard to the matters you're handling it. We all learned this in school, but I just want to remind you. And so what that means is that when you're making decisions on which technologies to use, as boring and time consuming as it may seem, please do your homework on which tools are more secure than others. One, I have worked in firms that have been banned by tracing terms and takes it to WhatsApp. On WhatsApp, you never know what can be sent to a competing firm or just another party who shouldn't be privy to what something that your client doesn't want to get out there. So if we've not had this conversation with our colleagues, and even if you're running a one-man show, you want to be careful about the networks you use, the tools that you use, and ask yourself, am I 100% sure that that I am looking out for my clients' best interest and that I am guaranteeing their confidentiality, even as we are digitizing our practices. So another alternative, I think, is a tool called Slack. I encourage you to check it out. It's a free tool. So the good thing about Slack, and I've shared about it before on LinkedIn, it's like Microsoft Teams. You can have it on your phone as well. And what it helps is it helps you to collaborate minus the many emails, and you can share documents there, work-related documents, work-related conversations. You can create multiple threads, like for instance, different client names. And so as colleagues, and even with your own clients, you can communicate much freely and easily on a platform like Slack than you can on WhatsApp. I think that's what I want to talk about right now. I think over to you in the interest of time. There's so much more I wanted to talk about, but I think for now that's what I want to say. So yeah, Omo and Busola, I think I'll let you take the helm from here.
Wow. Um, I feel like giving you a standing ovation or requesting that everybody do that, but hey, this is
Thank you.
this is
Thank you
not
so much.
the venue for that. Thank you so much. I think you just came to, you know, furnish us with all the technologies you can get.
Mm-hmm.
So sorry, I think we lost Omo. So I'll just
Hello, I'm still here.
okay.
Okay, now Busola, you just take over from here now. Please, Olivia, can you just drop the link to I think
Okay.
it was your website you mentioned, and then
Yeah.
some of the some of the things Asana,
Yeah.
Dupsad.
Dupsado. Dupsado for CRM and your schedule. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, Omo, do we still have you? Okay, I think he's muted. Olivia, thank you so much. Thank you. I can see people saying in the comment section, thank you, thank you. You mentioned so many tools. I'm hoping that we'll be able to we'll be able to leverage as many as we can of all the tools Olivia had as mentioned, and we'll be able to run with it and ensure that our law practice is it would drive efficiency and productivity for us. It would drive efficiency and productivity for us. And one of the things that struck me from what Olivia said is the fact that a lot of us do not take data. We don't take data seriously, and which is very, very true. Recently, I also found out that doing that helps a lot. So I am also trying to get into that to work more on that aspect of taking data seriously, knowing what people are asking for, knowing what prospective clients, what services they need, or what area of law they're looking into. So I think we've gotten a lot of value from you. Olivia, have you dropped the link to your website?
Okay, so I'm sharing it right now. And on the point of data, I've worked in I've worked in other industries, and when I came back, I did the law degree, worked in other industries, and then I came back now to work for law firms with their marketing and their strategy. And that's one thing, Busola, that was so striking to me, the difference between how other industries kind of revere and take data seriously, that the executives and the leaders in the other industries are always asking questions about the trends and getting market information, and they invest to get research done. they make that investment. But we as lawyers, I don't know if it's because our training is, we are taught about precedents and statutes. We're always looking back, but we should also
we're not trained. We are not trained as businessmen. Those
exactly
ones are trained as businessmen. So that's why they do everything from a business perspective. But we lawyers, we are not trained as businessmen. So we don't understand all of these things. We don't even take our marketing and seriously. So that's what people like you and I are now trying to do, right? That's what we are trying to do. So I'm glad that we're having this conversation, and I'm glad that we have quite a number of people in the room that can see these things, they can hear it, and I'm hoping that after now, so we're going to have a short break before we start the second session. I'm hoping that if you can just take 1 minute, 5 minutes to look out for all of these things that has been said, all these tools that Olivia has mentioned, even if it's just one, look at how it operates, look at, the interface, check it out, and, choose the one you want to work with. You may not necessarily work with everything, but just take one and run with it. If after we leave here today, everything we heard, everything we learned, we do not implement, we do not take into practice, we will still remain the same. And that's what thing I keep saying, that knowledge is not enough, but what you do with your knowledge is what matters, is what counts. We are about 60 people in this room now. What is going to separate every one of us is the action we will take after now. If after now you do not take any action, you will still remain the same. It's not a cause, it's not a lie, but it's just reality. So the action we take after today is what would separate us from each other. So thank you again, Olivia. I'm sure you've dropped the link now. Please, everyone, follow Olivia. She has a podcast, and the podcast is really, really good. I mean, sometimes I just take time to listen, and I get a whole lot of insights. And she's going to be hosting very soon on our podcast. So watch out for my session with her. So thank you. I'm sure we've gotten a whole lot of value, and I think we can wrap it up from here because we spent so much time. The next session is to commence at 2, but I would want to crave our indulgence. Can we move it by 20 minutes so that we can start at 2:20? So we can just refresh, and I can also get some things sorted here. Thank you. So what I would do is the link for the next session, I'm going to post it here in the comments session. I'm going to post it here in the chat. So everyone look into the chat to get the link for the next session. I'm not going to send an email, please. We won't send an email. Myself and my team, we are overworked, please. So we're just going to post it here, and you can just pick it up from here. Thank you, everyone.
Busola, so are we to say our goodbyes now?
No, just a minute. Let me post the
All right. While you do that, I just want to thank all 62 or so people that were on this call, on this Zoom conference. I'm sure we got value. From all the thank yous I can see, it is very, very interesting. Please don't forget, take a picture of this or do a screenshot. And if you can, let people know that we are here. We have been told to use digital and technology very, very optimally. Let people know the value that you're getting, and then more importantly, register for the next session. I think it's also a paid event, but as Bisola said, we'll most likely have to just pay a token to get more value. Food for thought. I think that with what I heard Olivia and Ignaz mention, there is clearly opportunity in the legal tech solution in Nigeria. So if we can partner with technology people or IT people here, home-based and homegrown, so that we can come up with solutions. I mean, we heard Olivia talking about how that there are some technology people in Kenya that develop software for lawyers and all. So maybe we lawyers can partner with technology people so that we can develop something that can be bespoke for the Nigerian jurisdiction. That's food for thought for me. Uh, Bosola, are you ready? Are you done posting the link? Bosola, are you there?
Just a minute, please.
I see the comments. I think I don't want to murder any name. People are just saying that they're glad, they're glad, they're glad. Okay, yes, I've seen
I posted.
I would like to thank all our facilitators. Thank you so much, Ignaz, I apologize. And thank you, Olivia, for the very, very detailed. Somebody used the word, you just basically unearthed the skills that we need to thrive in these times and going forward. I'm sure, no doubt, everybody here knows how that they can position themselves in at least minimal terms and basic terms uh, to attract, to win work, and to deliver good work and then retain good clients. Olivia, you have done a massive job at that. Thank you. I have questions, but we can't take the questions. I'm sure, as you said, Google is our friend. All the upselling, downselling, cross-selling that I heard you share, I'm going to Google to go and make sure that I know all of those things. Yes. Thank you to the facilitators. A lot of messages are coming in saying thank you and saying thank you. Busola, once you're done, let us know so that we can.
Sorry, I have said I've dropped the link. Has been dropped. I've dropped the link there. So please, everyone, look into the comment section to get the link for the next meeting. One, then two, please, please do not share this link. Please do not share this link, because if you do, then it comes to a matter of integrity. So the link is for those who paid, and please do not share it. And please ensure that you are signing in with your device, with your name on it, with your name on it.
Nokia 3.1.
The other thing I would also want to say is, please, we made access to this virtual summits very, very flexible by saying we should pay whatever amount we want. And so please, we have plans, myself and my team, we have plans for the recordings. The SLB members, they know. The recordings, the replays, they don't come free. So if you did not join any session or you missed out on any session and you want to get the recordings, you would have to pay. But however, you would just pay a balance from what you had previously paid. So for instance, let's say the recordings is going out for 100,000 naira. It is not, that's just an example. And what you paid for coming in here is 40,000. You won't be paying 100,000, you'll be paying the balance of 60,000. So please, if you missed any session, the recordings is available at the balance of whatever you had paid before. The recordings are not free. We intend to sell it because we are in this for business, but we're just trying to make it flexible for everyone to get value, because we understand the times we are in. That's why we have actually made it flexible. On a normal day, you know that SLB events are actually not very, very, they're not free, right? They're not free. So please, for the recordings are going to be at a fee. Hi, Carol, I can see you. Okay, so I think we'll just take a break now, and we'll come back at, I think we'll just come back at 2, because Carol is here. We'll just come back at 2. We'll take 23 minutes break, and we'll come back here.
Sorry, I thought you said 2:30.
But we have our people here, and I have other people also telling me that they are ready to come on.
Okay, yes, not a problem. Carol, it's a pleasure to see you again.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, see everybody at 2. Thank you, Olivia. Thank you, Ignaz, I see Ignaz has also dropped a link to Deloitte site. And thank you, everybody. See us all. See you all at 2. All right. All right. So bye.
You can turn off your mics and say your bye-byes.
Bye, Busola. Thank you very much.
Bye, Ignaz. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Yeah,
Bye.
thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye from Kenya.
See you soon from Spain.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, see you soon.